Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're really going beyond the usual headlines.
We really are. We're stepping into this fascinating space where, global business, tech, and some pretty profound spiritual claims all intersect.
Yeah, the source material we have today is quite something. It's unique.
It definitely is. We're doing a deep dive into a document that, it completely reframes how a big global company, ONPASSIVE, supposedly came about.
Right. It doesn't frame it like a typical startup, seeking VC funding or spotting market cap.
No, not at all. This source presents the whole thing, the company, its founder, Ashman Farr, as like a divinely guided mission, almost a matter of destiny.
Okay, so let's unpack that right away. Our goal here is pretty clear. We're digging into this extensive text, almost philosophical, which makes this really extraordinary claim. It says, God has powered Ashman Farr to empower the whole world.
That's the core of it.
So we need to pull out the philosophy behind that, the mechanisms it talks about for empowerment, and nail down the specific claims about transformation that are laid out in this vision. We're looking at the narrative itself, not market performance or anything like that.
That's a really important distinction, yeah. This isn't like reading a quarterly report. It's much more like a declaration of purpose.
Right.
The material gives this totally integrated view, commerce, and spirituality woven together. It even calls the company a movement of destiny.
A movement of destiny.
Wow, so our aim is to analyze those specific claims, the why and the how of ONPASSIVE as this source depicts it, just so you, the listener, can get a full picture of these, foundational assertions.
Okay, let's start with how the story is built. Every narrative needs a foundation, right? And here, source labels it the call of purpose. And it kicks off by saying that any movement that truly changes the world, absolutely any, starts with what it calls a divine spark. That immediately sets a different tone, doesn't it?
It really does. And what's interesting, rhetorically speaking, is how that kind of framework almost, shields the vision from standard business skepticism.
How so?
Well, if the driving force is divine, then the scale of the whole thing has to be bigger than what humans alone could manage, right?
Okay, yeah.
The source is explicit. It says God puts a vision in the heart of a chosen person. A vision so vast, so purposeful, that no ordinary soul.
So the leader is immediately positioned as, operating on a different level.
And Ashman Farr is named specifically. He's the what? The vessel.
Exactly, the vessel.
And the narrative insists his mission wasn't just, say, launching a successful tech firm. It was bigger. He was sent to build hope.
Build hope. That's a powerful framing.
Yeah, and it means the vision goes way beyond usual metrics like profit or market share. The core purpose is defined as this sort of trilogy: empowerment, unity, and light.
And that triad, empowerment, unity, light, becomes critical. It acts like the moral compass for, everything that follows, every product, every strategic decision, supposedly. It's the ultimate benchmark for success, according to this document, isn't it?
Absolutely. If the company achieves that mass empowerment, then it's fulfilled its divine contract. Doesn't matter how it looks on the stock market, hypothetically.
Right.
Which brings us smoothly to the next really core element: faith as the cornerstone.
Okay.
The source says, before a single line of code, before any business plan maybe, the foundation was just pure faith. Absolute faith.
And the text spends quite a bit of time on this phase before the technology.
It does.
It talks about the belief that one person's idea, which seemed impossible to many, could actually reach and uplift billions.
Mm-hmm.
And also this really crucial philosophical idea that technology itself could be redesigned to genuinely serve people rather than exploit them, which the source implies past models did.
All right. So the faith itself is almost the first product. The belief is the initial offering.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And this faith is then shown as directly challenging the conventional wisdom of the world.
How does it frame that?
The source uses this specific anecdote or claim. It says, when the world representing critics, maybe analysts, doubters, said, it's impossible, Ashman Farr's supposed response was the ultimate statement of his divine mandate. With God, all things are possible.
Okay, so that's not just presented as an inspirational post.
No, not at all. It's framed as the actual spiritual bedrock, the foundation for the entire financial and technological future of this global community of founders they talk about.
And it's that faith, the source suggests, that got the early adopters, the founders, to buy in. Not just with money, but with their actual belief.
Exactly. Which leads into this deeper discussion about how divine selection works under the heading, God chooses his instruments.
Right. And what's the logic there?
The document really emphasizes that the choice isn't based on someone already being strong or perfectly suited. Instead, it claims God strengthens the people he chooses for the task.
So it contrasts like an easy path versus this path of destiny.
Precisely. The source says that Ashmufar was supposedly chosen not for comfort, which might imply, a smooth, predictable business journey, but specifically for courage.
Implying the path would be difficult.
Extremely difficult, fraught with huge challenges that would test his character. But this reframes the struggle entirely. The difficulties become proof that he's the right person, the right instrument. The trials are validation.
That's quite a perspective shift.
It is, and the preparation wasn't, a weekend workshop. The source describes this long, intense process needed to handle the weight of this destiny.
What kind of things does it mention?
It talks about walking in obedience through storms of doubt, putting up with long years of preparation, getting through sleepless nights of creation.
Wow.
The whole process is framed as stripping away distractions, forcing the leader to tune out the noise of the world and listen only to the whisper of purpose.
So it builds this really powerful narrative around the leader's journey.
Absolutely, a real mythos. The document claims God equipped him in 3 specific ways: power in his mind with vision, his heart with compassion, and his spirit with endurance.
Like a 3-legged stool. Need all 3.
Exactly. Without that triple prep, the vessel would break under the pressure. And that's why the source wraps this section up by saying what was being carried wasn't just a business plan.
Right. It was a movement of destiny.
A movement of destiny, and that framing justifies everything that comes later, every challenge faced, every grand claim made. The leader's internal development is presented as just as vital as the external tech being built.
Okay, so if the founder is the chosen vessel, we need to look at what he was supposedly empowered to build. The source moves on by claiming the innovation source wasn't standard either.
Right, not just human brain power or market research.
No, it says ONPASSIVE was built by divine wisdom, the kind that, it claims, guides inventors, dreamers, and prophets.
That's a huge claim structurally. If you connect that to the bigger picture, it implies that technological design itself is seen as inherently perfect, ethically sound, almost by definition.
Because it came from a divine source.
That's the implication. And Ashmufara is positioned as the messenger of a new digital era.
A new digital era. What defines that according to the text?
This new era is where, finally, the moral and the technological integrate properly. It's a space where automation meets compassion, and innovation serves integrity.
Automation meets compassion. Innovation serves integrity. That's the core idea we need to pull out there, isn't it?
Definitely.
The products aren't just code and features. They're meant to actually embody these values, compassion, integrity.
Right. Which means we should look at how the source talks about specific products. It frames them as reflections of what it calls God's idea of abundance. We need to go beyond just listing the names.
Absolutely. So it gives examples like OConnect, OChat, OWallet, ODesk. These cover key areas, right? Communication, finance, work.
Exactly. Core parts of digital life. OConnect, for example, the video conferencing tool. The claims around it aren't just about features. They often focus on like a superior, seamless connection, maybe even limitless capability, reflecting that unrestricted nature of divine abundance.
Okay, I see the connection. And OWallet then, the financial side.
It has to follow the same principle. If old systems are about debt, limits, scarcity, then OWallet, the source suggests, is designed to enable maybe exponential growth, easy transactions, delivering that financial freedom promised to the founders.
So the mandate for designing these tools is explicit.
Very explicit. They are meant to serve, not exploit, to uplift, not enslave. That contrast is hammered home again and again.
Serve versus exploit, uplift versus enslave. That seems central to the whole argument.
It absolutely is. By claiming its tech is morally superior, designed to lift people up, the document creates this sharp divide between ONPASSIVE and, maybe other big tech firms. It positions the whole project as this humanitarian mission, but powered by divine authority. The usefulness of the products is directly tied to fulfilling that mission.
But as we talked about, these divine journeys are never smooth sailing in these narratives.
No, never.
So the source addresses this. It turns to trials and refinement. It acknowledges that any chosen leader is going to face setbacks, delays, critics, operational headaches. How does the narrative deal with those unavoidable business problems?
It completely reframes them. It doesn't see them as failures or weaknesses.
Okay.
The assertion is that God's purpose cannot be delayed when the leader is powered by heaven. Therefore, any delay or challenge you see isn't a problem. It's actually a necessary part of the process. Refinement.
So it becomes proof of the mission's importance. Like it requires this extra level of testing.
Exactly. It's quite an ingenious rhetorical strategy, really. The trials become essential to the design itself.
How so?
Through every test, every difficulty, the document claims God was refining the founder, making him stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. The logic presented is, only the tested can lead the blessed.
Only the tested can lead the blessed.
Yeah. So the entire system, every feature in the software, the whole operational structure, isn't just technology. It's presented as the fruit of that faith, the result of going through that divine trial by fire.
So the trials actually provide validation for the strider itself.
That's the argument. If the system is meant to deliver this huge global blessing, it has to be tough enough, pure enough, having survived the leader's tests.
Right.
It cements the idea that everything about the business, from the specifics of, say, Odesk's features to maybe broader operational delays people might have observed, is all part of this purposeful spiritual plan designed to guarantee maximum positive impact when it finally launches fully.
Okay, we've got the chosen leader, the divinely inspired structure. Now, how does it actually work? How does this system supposedly create global change? The source calls this mechanism empowerment as worship. That's where the business side and the spiritual side seem to really merge.
It's probably the source's core theological point, actually. It claims God's power is shown through empowerment, not domination.
Okay, what does that mean in practice for a business model?
It fundamentally shifts things away from a top-down, founder-focused structure. The mission, it insists, was never really about Ashmufari's personal success or glory. It was always about you, me, and the world, the collective whole.
So that philosophy has to be baked into the actual structure of the company.
It has to be, according to this text. The document claims Ashmufara was empowered to build a system where every founder could achieve success through something called divine alignment.
Divine alignment, what does that mean practically?
It seems to refer to a kind of synchronicity, an ethical structure.
Yeah.
The source suggests that unlike other systems where maybe you have to compete aggressively, climb over others,
Right?
this system is designed so that one founder's success naturally helps others succeed too. It aligns their financial interests with the divine goal of unity.
So it's structurally cooperative rather than competitive.
That's the claim. And this is the synthesis we've been tracing. Empowerment itself is presented as a form of worship because, by design, when you lift other people up, you are glorifying the creator.
So participating isn't just a financial decision.
It elevates it. It becomes a kind of mandated spiritual action, according to this view.
Wow. Okay. And this idea of structural generosity, does it continue?
It does, into the next section called the movement of light. You know, the founder apparently often says, we are in it to win it.
Yeah, that sounds more like standard business talk.
It does, but the source immediately clarifies the definition of winning. It's not profit. Victory is purpose fulfilled.
Purpose fulfilled. Okay, that sets the bar much higher than typical corporate goals.
Much higher. And that purpose is laser focused on transforming the world. This movement of light is specifically described as shining into areas of darkness where human despair once ruled.
Does it name specific areas?
Yes, it explicitly names 3 huge global issues: poverty, hopelessness, and isolation. According to this document, ONPASSIVE's real success will be measured by how much it can demonstrably reduce those things worldwide.
That's a massive claim. Reduce poverty, hopelessness, isolation globally.
Huge. And the outcome, the source claims, is reaching people everywhere, villages, cities, and nations, and turning dreamers into doers and doers into world changers.
Dreamers into doers, doers into world changers.
Yeah. And the text insists this widespread impact isn't just luck or good marketing, it's a divine design, not a coincidence.
So every individual success story is evidence.
Evidence of the pre-planned divine strategy unfolding exactly as intended.
Okay, which then brings us to the role of the people involved, the founders themselves.
Right. Founders as vessels of blessing. This is crucial. The theology presented here is that God doesn't just bless one person and stop there.
Okay.
He blesses them so that they can then become a blessing to others. Ashmufara is presented as the main channel, but every single founder becomes an extension of that blessing. They amplify the impact, spreading it across the globe exponentially.
So they're not just customers or associates, they're Elevated.
Far beyond that, they're called torchbearers of hope. Each one is tasked with carrying this divine mission into their own community. It links local success directly to the global vision.
That's an incredibly high calling, spiritually and ethically, for people participating in what looks like a commercial enterprise.
It is a very high charge, and the promised outcomes looking ahead are sweeping, not subtle at all.
What kind of outcomes?
The system is claimed to ensure that families will prosper financially, that hearts will actually heal because of that financial freedom, and that humanity itself will rediscover unity through the global connections provided by the ONPASSIVE platform.
Heal hearts. Rediscover unity. The scope is total societal renewal.
Exactly. And the ultimate promise, the capstone of this section, is breathtakingly ambitious. This is what happens when God powers a man. Entire generations are transformed.
Generations transformed. So the impact isn't just for now.
No, it's intended to ripple through time, creating a legacy that lasts far beyond the company's lifespan, or even the founders. It's not just business. The claim is it's redirecting history. #revive. Leadership, timing, and legacy.
All right, if the impact is meant to be generational, then the timing of its arrival must be significant too.
Absolutely. And the source gives this a lot of weight in a section on divine timing and restoration.
What's the core assertion there?
It states that God's timing is never early, never late, always perfect, which suggests that ONPASSIVE appearing when it did wasn't random. It was meticulously planned for a very specific moment in history.
And does it connect that timing to anything specific happening in the world?
Yes, directly. It ties the rise of ONPASSIVE to a period of global disillusionment, a time when, the source claims, the world really needed renewal, a moment when many people had lost faith in existing systems.
What kind of systems?
Could be economic systems, political structures, maybe even disillusionment with the exploitative side of earlier technologies.
Okay, so ONPASSIVE arrives as the answer.
As the counter-narrative, the solution presented is the creation of a system of faith.
A system of faith.
Yeah, and it claims that through the digital doors of ONPASSIVE, people from all backgrounds, all walks of life will find opportunity, dignity, and purpose. Those words, opportunity, dignity, purpose, go way beyond standard business language.
They certainly do. Dignity and purpose.
And importantly, this achievement isn't just called successful innovation. The text specifically labels it divine restoration.
Divine restoration. What does that entail?
It's framed as the act of giving back dignity and purpose to people who felt marginalized or let down by older, failed systems. It's proof, the source argues, that when God empowers a leader correctly, the world becomes a better place for everyone. The leader acts as a channel for restoring dignity, using technology as the tool.
This focus on dignity and sort of global fairness leads naturally into talking about the leadership style itself, doesn't it?
It does. The section is called The Heart of a Servant Leader. The model held up is one of pure servanthood.
So Ashmafar's greatness, according to this source, isn't about power or control in the usual corporate sense.
Not at all. It's found, the source claims, in his humility, his willingness to serve the larger mission above himself.
Humility as the driving force.
Yes, positioned not just as a nice trait, but as the actual operational engine. His heart, the document says, beats with the rhythm of heaven, and that rhythm supposedly guides every decision, keeping the company aligned with the greater good.
And there's a lesson in that leadership model.
A crucial one, directed at the founders and maybe the world. True success is measured by how much you give, not by how much you gather.
Give versus gather. That must shape the whole economic model then.
It has to. The vision is defined by what the source calls divine generosity.
Divine generosity, like God's generosity.
Exactly. The source explicitly says the mandate includes sharing wealth, sharing knowledge, sharing joy across the whole world. It mirrors the way the sun shines on everyone without favoritism. This becomes a key ethical principle for how benefits are distributed within the system.
Okay, so bringing it all together.
We reach the final synthesis, the divine legacy.
And what is that legacy?
Stepping into the ONPASSIVE ecosystem, the source claims, means you are stepping into a legacy that started with God's intention, was delivered through Ashmufar, and is now being lived out and carried forward by millions of founders around the world.
It makes the divine mandate incredibly personal for every single person involved.
It really does. And this vision is presented as something much bigger than just a successful company scaling up.
How much bigger?
It's framed as the awakening of a generation that is actively choosing unity instead of division, choosing abundance instead of scarcity thinking, and fundamentally choosing faith over fear.
So the stakes are presented as
Yeah.
incredibly high, like a turning point for humanity.
That's the implication. It's about humanity's future direction. And the final reminder, especially to the founders, is that they're part of this huge divine movement where the spiritual and the commercial are completely intertwined.
Faith fuels innovation.
And innovation fuels transformation. The two are inseparable in this narrative. And the document closes with this incredibly powerful, definitive statement. When God empowers one man with a pure heart and a global vision, the world will never be the same again. Hashtag outro.
Wow. That was quite a deep dive. We've analyzed a document that really does merge these incredibly high claims of spiritual destiny with the actual mechanics of automated commerce.
Yeah, we've broken down how specific tech products, you mentioned OConnect, OWallet, OChat, they aren't seen just as tools in this narrative. They're framed as reflections of divine abundance, actually designed to create generational change.
It's an extraordinary claim.
It is. We've looked at a document that promises using tech and business as the vehicle, nothing short of divine restoration. The goal stated is eliminating poverty, hopelessness, isolation worldwide.
And it completely reframes leadership and participation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The leader's a vessel, the products are wisdom, the participants are torchbearers.
Exactly. It assigns these profound roles.
So as we always like to do, we want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought, something to really chew on, drawn directly from the source material we just explored.
Mm-hmm. The entire narrative we've discussed rests on this idea that technology here isn't neutral. It's not just a commercial tool. It's presented as a system designed by divine wisdom, brought into being through the faith and the trials, the refinement of one specific chosen leader.
Right. And that system, as described, demands a very high level of ethical commitment, of dedication from everyone involved, users, founders, because participation itself is framed as a spiritual act, a form of worship.
So here's the question for you to think about. If technology is framed this way as a servant of humanity, designed by divine wisdom, a tool for divine restoration, does that fundamentally shift the ethical responsibility?
Shift it for whom?
For both its creators and its users. Does it move that responsibility beyond just a commercial concern or a technical one into something much deeper, a foundational, maybe even spiritual mission?
From commercial concern to spiritual mission. That is definitely something profound to think about as you continue exploring this really unique intersection of, well, destiny and digital innovation. Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take those dense stacks of sources, the fascinating, sometimes really unexpected ones, and pull out the essential nuggets. Fast. Today, our mission is, well, it's quite specific and, frankly, pretty extraordinary. We're diving into a foundational document that lays out the vision for the tech company ONPASSIVE and its founder, Ash Mufareh. And this is not your typical white paper.
No, definitely not. What's really singular here is the language. It doesn't talk business in the usual sense, market share, quarterly reports, that kind of thing. Instead, it frames the whole venture through, well, a lens of divine mission, destiny, spiritual purpose. So our job today is to really dissect the language and the core beliefs presented in this document, impartially, of course.
Right. And the central claim, the idea that holds it all together in this source, is that God specifically powered Ash Mufareh, powered him to empower the world, essentially turning this company into what the text calls a movement of destiny. That's a huge claim for any company, let alone tech.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where does the origin story start in this document?
Well, the source is very deliberate about establishing a non-secular origin. It claims that every truly world-changing movement starts not with market analysis, but with a divine spark. And Mufareh is presented as the, quote, chosen vessel for this particular vision in the modern digital age.
It's interesting how the goal itself is framed in non-commercial terms right from the start. The purpose wasn't just building a company making money, it was about building hope. The source actually says the vision transcended wealth. That positions it way beyond typical startup goals, doesn't it?
It really does. It creates a stark contrast. The foundation is explicitly named as faith. Faith that existed before ONPASSIVE, the company, even had a name or a structure. It was this belief, apparently, that one idea, guided divinely, could touch billions. And importantly, that technology could be a servant to humanity, not its master. That's a key distinction they make.
And the source seems to anticipate skepticism, right? That people would hear this and think, okay, that's impossible.
Yeah.
The document mentions Mufareh facing these doubts, these challenges, where the world supposedly said it can't be done.
Yeah.
But the text counters with his alleged response, quoting him, "With God, all things are possible." That single line is positioned as like the engine that started it all.
Exactly, and that quote is crucial because it underpins the persistence described later. The source stresses he was chosen not for, say, power or wealth, but for courage. It claims he walked in obedience through storms of doubt, sleepless nights of creation, listening only to this whisper of purpose. It's very much a narrative of being tested and refined for this movement of destiny.
Okay, so we have this incredibly high-stakes, faith-driven foundation. But how does that bridge to the practical side? How does this divine purpose translate into, the actual tech, the business itself?
Right, that's the next logical step.
Right.
And if we look at the second main theme in the document, it really elevates the whole creation process. It almost makes it sound sacred. It asserts ONPASSIVE wasn't built just by human ingenuity or standard coding practices, but by divine wisdom, a kind of guiding force working through the inventors, dreamers, and prophets involved. It completely reframes software development.
That jump from the theological to the technical, it's quite something. Does the document give specific examples? How are the products themselves framed?
It does. It grounds the concept by mentioning specific tools. They're positioned not just as software, but as tangible reflections of God's idea of abundance. So for instance, it lists things like OConnect, their video conferencing tool, OChat for communication, OWallet, the digital finance system, and ODesk for HR management. The claim is that because these tools originate from divine wisdom, they inherently reflect abundance in how they work and what they offer.
That technical grounding is key, I think, because it leads to what the source claims is an ethical difference. If it comes from divine wisdom, it must have an obligation. What is that obligation?
The obligation, as stated in the document, is very clear: to serve, not exploit. To uplift, not enslave. It's presented as a direct contrast to tech that, might monetize attention or misuse data. Mufari himself is framed almost as a prophet here, a messenger of a new digital era, an era where automation meets compassion and innovation inherently serves integrity. This really pushes the mission beyond just business goals into ethical territory.
Okay, and this is where, for me, it gets really interesting. Section 3 in the source material. It talks about empowerment, the core of the system, and it explicitly links the business model, how the participants, the founders, succeed directly to a spiritual imperative. It's not just community building, it's defining the business as a spiritual act.
Yes, the core idea presented is that Mufara understood that God's power isn't about domination. It's about, radical empowerment. So his mission, as the source frames it, was never really about him. It was about creating this global system where every single founder could, quote, stand tall and achieve self-sufficiency.
So financial success isn't just financial success. It's tied to something bigger, which connects to that really critical religious claim in the text. Empowerment is described as a form of worship. The source explicitly states that when you lift others up, you are, in that act, glorifying the Creator. That makes succeeding in this system a kind of spiritual service.
It absolutely does. The text draws a direct line between the material and the spiritual. It suggests that achieving financial freedom, that material success actually heals hearts. The implication is that financial stress causes deeper distress. And by fixing the scarcity problem with abundance, you enable healing and unity. The whole business model becomes almost therapeutic.
That level of ambition, it almost needs a sense of historical context, doesn't it? Does the source provide that?
It does. It introduces this concept of divine timing. It basically argues ONPASSIVE's rise wasn't accidental. It happened precisely when the world was fractured, needed renewal, and people had lost faith in traditional systems. So the business isn't just disrupting markets, it's positioned as divine restoration, offering opportunity and dignity right when the world needed it most, according to the document.
And what about the individuals, the founders? What's their role in this grand narrative? The source seems quite specific about their mandate.
Very specific. They're given this almost scriptural role. They're called vessels of blessing and torchbearers of hope. Their job is to carry this mission into their own communities. And the promised outcome is huge. Families prospering, hearts healing, humanity rediscovering unity. They're positioned as the agents of this global, divinely driven transformation on a local level.
Okay, connecting this all up, this kind of narrative seems to demand a particular style of leadership, of governance. How does the text describe Mufara's leadership?
It defines what the source calls godly leadership, and it's entirely rooted in servanthood. It really emphasizes humility over titles, contribution over ego. The greatest leader is the greatest servant. That idea comes through strongly.
Which implies a totally different measure of success compared to, say, Wall Street. The document argues that real success isn't how much you accumulate.
Right, not your net worth. It's about how much you give. And this idea apparently informs the whole global vision. sharing wealth, knowledge, joy across the world, mirroring what the Source calls divine generosity.
That's why it's described as a movement of light, shining into darkness.
Exactly. And that darkness is specifically named poverty, hopelessness, isolation.